Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. As a Christian parent, you probably have spent hours pouring into your child's spiritual life. Perhaps you read preschool devotions with them, taught them Jesus loves me, drove them to Awana, got them involved in youth group, and attended church regularly. But as your kids enter adulthood, perhaps they've wrestled with their faith and aren't sure if they believe what you believe. Maybe they've even left the faith behind entirely. In this interview, Jami shares her own experiences as her children have grown, explains why we can't make our children love Jesus and shouldn't, and how we need to let Jesus be Jesus for our children. Jami Amerine is the author of the popular blog Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, where she posts about Jesus, parenting, marriage, and the general chaos of life. She holds a master's degree in education, counseling, and human development. Her first book, Stolen Jesus, which was interviewed on this show in January, released in October of 2017. She's been featured on numerous occasions on ForEveryMom.com and several other syndicated sites, including Scary Mommy and Mama Load. She's also been featured on Fox News, Today's Parenting, and Huffington Post. She loves her husband and kids and is afraid of flying, addicted to Jesus, Facebook, blogging, and babies. She loves to travel and hang at her parents' lake house outside of Houston. Her dad is her #1 fan. She's run the gamut in trying to raise perfect humans and is proud to say she failed. They are imperfectly wonderful. She's a Christian who tends to get snarky and is anti-Jesus fish bumper stickers because she's just basically a bad driver. Jami and her husband Justin have 6 kids, are active in foster care advocacy and reform, and live in Texas. You can learn more about Jami at www.sacredgroundstickyfloors.com. Here to discuss her new book, Sacred Grounds, Sticky Floors, How Less Than Perfect Parents Can Raise, well, kind of great kids. Here is Jami Amerine. Jami, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you back. You're a return visitor. We had you in January to talk about Stolen Jesus, and what a great moment that was for us to really cover that. I hope that our audience is going to weigh into both the message of Stolen Jesus and the message of this new book. But let's go back a little bit, kind of reintroduce the audience to you. It's been 12 months. Almost 11 months since you appeared with us last, and talk about the family, talk about your upbringing, your faith journey, some of the highlights and some of the lowlights, because as an overcomer, if it's just all tiptoe through the tulips and glory to glory and mountaintop to mountaintop, nobody really buys that story, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't. And I love to admit that it's not easy, because I think that more people resonate with that than just this sunny, constant disposition of Jesus loves me and everything is grand, because it's hard. Life is just hard. It's easier with Jesus, but it's just hard. So I was actually raised kind of all over the Western United States, born in California. My dad and mom are both from Utah. And so we lived there while my dad finished college, and then he went to work for an oil field company and stayed with them until just this summer. He just retired. But so we moved all over Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas. And then, and we also church hopped. So originally my mother was Mormon, and a lot of people in Utah are. And my dad was anti-Mormon, which a lot of the people in Utah are. And then they got baptized and saved when I was in grade school, and we went from Assembly to God, the Assembly of God, to Baptist, to United Methodist, just kind of wherever we lived, that's where, and we got invited to church, that's where we went to church. So I had a lot of experience with different theologies and different ways of doing things. And then I met my husband right after high school. I met him and he was Catholic, and he said, I need you to be Catholic. And I was like, why not? I've been everything else. So, and then his mother, about 5 years ago, was in our care during the last stages of her time here on earth. And by the time that was over, we left the Catholic Church. And since then, we've kind of done some more church hopping, some deep reflection on who Jesus is, and in terms of who Jesus is based on religion versus relationship, and really knowing him. And so then last year, we left the Abilene, Texas area after our entire marriage there of 26 years and moved to the Houston area so that I could have some more opportunities to speak and travel and be close to my parents. And at home, we have 4 children. Our oldest daughter is married, and she lives here in the Houston area. Our oldest son, John, is a Marine, and he's floating at sea somewhere, I don't know where. And then Luke, who actually is in a big part of Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, the book, and actually wrote the afterword, is living here with us at home, and just got a big promotion at work. Sophie's in high school, and then we have our 2 younger sons that we adopted through foster care and adoption, and they are 6 and 4. So we are busy, and we had a long-term foster placement of she was with us for almost 2 years. She was another reason that I kind of wanted a fresh start and a new beginning in a new town. Is after she left, it was just very, very hard. I love her mama. She's restored. She's a wonderful human being and a good mama. But it was very hard to have that piece of our lives end. So since then, I've been very interested in developing some curriculum for people like Joy Baby's mama that fell on hard times or made a mistake. I would love to have a ministry of that magnitude for those parents that are in a terrifying situation, made a horrible mistake. And that's really what my husband and I are most interested in pursuing in foster care now.
You know, Jami, you bring up something that I happen to be personally familiar with. And there's 2 parts of this equation. I'm an adopted father. I have a 29-year-old who I adopted at birth. But prior to her adoption, I was approached by a young woman that I worked with who was pregnant and came to me and said, I want you to adopt my unborn baby. And I found out in California I needed to hire an attorney and I needed to go through a whole lot of things before this. But one of our intentions was in counseling her to make the decision to keep the child. And she ultimately wound up deciding to keep the child, and that was a great joy for us, but also great sadness as we began to anticipate the adoption process. The equation is 2-sided. You have this joy baby conceived in whatever moment it was conceived in, but yet the mother's not prepared to, whether or not it's because of drug use or trafficking or winds up finding themselves in a sentencing program, alternative sentencing program, not able to take care of the child, and the child's placed in the system, in the foster care system. And so you have a ministry to the mother of the joy baby, or even the mother and father, but then you also have a ministry that's kind of the after the joy baby leaves, for parents to navigate this loss of a child that they have poured so much in. So it's really actually quite a larger ministry vision when you take a look at both sides of the equation. I think it's wonderful to counsel the mother to want to get right, to get where they're stable, employed, they've changed, and now they are quote unquote fit according to the standards of social services to take the responsibility for that child. But then there's that grief, that separation, that whole thing. And as much as there are institutional foster care families, it's the non-institutional foster care families like you who are not institutionalized. You don't do this because you're getting $800 a month for every kid. You're doing this because you love, you want to provide a home, and you've gotten and you found how broken the system is, how there are institutionalized foster parents that don't really care for the true welfare of the child, but this is an industry. And there are those like yourself that need the support after the joy baby gets reunited. So I can see this as being something for you and for Justin, because you've navigated those waters. That's where that empathy, that real ministry call comes from. And it's on a different track than this book, but it is really something that is really quite significant, and I think is a very desperate need, because we had no one to talk to. It was just like, well, we felt good, we did the right thing. All right? And we reunited mother and child. It was prior to the birth of the child, so Deanna never knew a time of separation, and we never really got to know the baby. We kind of let them go live their life. But I can see where those that are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year into the foster care, and then the parent shows back up and you have to relinquish, you know, you don't go into it thinking that you're going to keep them, but you don't go into it thinking you're going to lose them. So
No, and there's so many. I actually, this last month with the holidays and with Jami Amerine being gone, I had about 2 days where I just almost could not function. And I was talking to my friend, and she said, you know, Jami, you lost a child. And John left at the exact same time that Joy Baby was removed. And I did. And my husband did, and our children did. And I don't, I think that people think because you signed up for it, that it's a different type of grief, but it's not. It's real, intense, horrible grief. And it's sometimes unbearable, except at the foot of the cross. And I say this quite a bit when I blog about grief. We, in our society, I think we just try and push past it, you know, get to the next thing. When are you going to feel better? When are you going to pull it together? And grief is the celebration of a loss. And she is worth the time and effort it takes to miss her and pray for her and pray for her mother. And, but it is a very empty space in foster care, because I think people just think, well, you signed up for it, you know? And we did sign up for it. And I will say, the very first time that I met Joy Baby, that was my first thought. Where is her mama, and is she okay? Because something just did not sit right with me. And there was parts of me as it went on that was my goal, is to reunite her and, you know, do the very best I could. And there was other times where it looked like it was hopeless, and I had to give her all of me. And giving all of me to her was a risk, and it proved to hurt. But it's also something I like to encourage people that are considering foster care, that are always so quick to go, well, I can't do that, I'm afraid I'd get hurt. Life hurts. And if that's our first reaction to giving of ourselves, how are we serving Jesus? How are we serving the least of these? And it does hurt. And I don't ever lie about that. It still is one of the most traumatic events of my life. Even knowing that she's safe and well, I miss everything about her. And my husband misses everything about her. And the boys ask about her. And the kids, and I actually just talked to her mama, or FaceTime, kind of sending pictures back and forth a couple days ago. And it was delightful to have that. But when it was over, I was down and out for 2 days. This is somebody I invested, or two people I invested 2 years of my life in, that are not around. But Jesus, and he, I'm honored to have stood in that gap, and I'm loved well by him. And life hurts. There's other losses that we can't foresee or predict, but to say no as your initial response to giving of yourself scares me for our society, and especially for believers.
You know, I think one of the underlying themes of your book is you cannot act in fear, that you've got to act in faith, and that it's kind of a book of surrender, not just parenting. I mean, there's lots of parenting books out there, but it's more geared towards understanding your role as a parent and God's role as God. And it's kind of, it could be entitled, Help Not Wanted, Love the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit doesn't need our help. He
No.
needs our obedience. He needs our sacrifice. He needs our compliance and our faithfulness, but he doesn't need our help.
No.
You know, I don't remember the last time I got a phone call from the Lord that says, listen, I'm really struggling with this situation, and I sure could use some advice in this matter from you, Rabbi. What are your thoughts on this? Whatever you say, I'll do. That's not how it works.
No, we've given him a very human spirit, and we think that he's capable, or for me especially, I for years thought he was only capable of what I was capable of, and I wasn't able to fathom past that. And in parenting, especially in our Western society, we do it well. I mean, not perfectly, but we have books and we have resource blogs and just all the things so that we're ready to tackle anything. And then something that we couldn't fathom happens, and it's beyond us and beyond our control. And we never really, I don't think we ever really, really let go until we absolutely have to. And it's kind of a shame because he offers that to us, come to me, all who are weary. I've got this. I'm your guy. And we just hold on as tight as we can and as desperate as we can until it's just ripped from our hands and we have no choice. But really, and one of the sayings people, well, there's nothing left to do but pray. Well, no, actually, that was your best option was right there, is that. So, but I would be the first to admit that that's not how I rolled for years. It's just not. I thought that if I was good, he would bless, and if I was bad, he would curse. And the reality of it is, at my best, there could still be hard things that happen, and at my worst, he could still bless. And so, he's mysterious, and we want to be able to figure things out. And I think that that's what drives people to research and read and study. But I really do believe that we find him, and we are closest to him in surrender.
Jami, you've raised really two sets of kids.
Yes.
You now have 3 adult and 3 young. What have you found different now that you've had to let go of the 3 adult and parent differently compared to the hands-on, day-to-day of the younger ones?
Well, with my first batch that we referred to as the originals, I really did parent from the tree of good and evil. This is bad, this is good, do this, don't do this. And it was all-consuming, behavior-based, which is actually how I approached God also. And since falling into the message of grace and the truth of Jesus' unconditional love, it does not falter. He wants restoration and relationship with all of us. And I think that's hard for some people to fathom because of how they feel about certain people or certain actions. But he wants that. That's why he died. He died for all of us. It is it's a relief to know. Our youngest, that's 4, has actually had a little bit more trouble at school. And he came home and he said, sometimes I'm bad and sometimes I'm good. And my initial response was, you're good. You're a good guy. You're amazing. Your actions may be this way or this way, but I love you. And I really do. I feel like the opportunity to tell anyone I love you still is what Jesus has called us to. He didn't die with I love you, but he died, I love you still. You cannot be separated from me. And in our parenting, I think we like to think that we think like, or that we parent like that. But I remember for years, when we would reprimand somebody or something, it was, I'm sorry, but, or I love you, but. Well, no, I love you. And it's literally a period. I love you. This, and this, and this cannot continue to happen. I love you. But when we offer conditional love, or we speak, even if we don't intend to, with conditional love, it is a reflection on, especially in Christian homes, because we view that relationship with our parents is so imperative to our relationship with God. So understanding there is nothing that can separate me from the love of God, and there is nothing that can separate me from the love of my children. And there is no but in a good I love you, and there is no but in a good sorry, ever. It's just still. This is still going to be our relationship. It might be bumpy, it might be rocky, it might be hard, but this is what you and I have together. And modeling that for my younger children, I think my older children are well-balanced and delightful, but they see it now too, and we talk about it too. But it is easier. It is easier to not say so in control of things that it feels like it's contingent, that our relationship is anyway contingent. I love these people still, and I am loved still. God is still always for me. He's always with me.
Amen. We're talking with Jami Amerine, author of Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, How Less Than Perfect Parents Can Raise Kind of Great Kids. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the nuances involved in older children parenting. She has two batches, the youngers and the olders, and the befores and the afters. And each one of the three olders have gone in a different direction. Some which is confirming of the foundation that was laid, and some are independently pursuing in their own way, and that brings their own challenges to the table. And we're going to talk about those when we return. We'll be right back. Shalom, I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and I've got a question for you. What do you think they're doing with your DNA? Oh, you know that 23andMe kit that you sent off, and you got back that report that told you you were Irish, you were French, you were Jewish? Wonder who's interested in that information. It's not like you've sent it off to a database with millions of other people and they can steal your identity, and who would really be interested in that information other than you? Well, maybe your friends and family, but there's one, yes, one who is so interested in your DNA that it would be something that would make you afraid. And that is Satan himself. Why would Satan be interested in your DNA? Because there is a Y chromosome marker that determines whether or not you are in the line of Aaron. That's right, the biblical line of Aaron the priest. That's because if the priesthood comes back and the high priest takes his role as the head of the Sanhedrin, they will be the ones to call for the return of Jesus. Well, what can they do with your DNA? Well, there are 40-plus countries weaponizing DNA today. And imagine if Satan could weaponize your DNA and use that Y chromosome marker to take out the line of the high priest, then Jesus doesn't come back. That is the plot behind the best-selling book, The Codex, now out in second edition on Kindle, $2.99, also available in paperback. This is a biblical thriller beyond comparison that's going to take you on an incredible journey to understand what they could do with your DNA. I also want to encourage you to visit our website, ignitingnation.com, and click on special offers. There you're going to find the yellow cover of this book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. We're going to take you on a journey in the Garden of Eden to the seed, the ground, all the way out to the fruit that reveals things of the natural that God is trying to reveal supernatural truths. Contained within these pages are 7 laws and 7 lessons within each law. They're going to take you on an incredible journey of understanding about the life you live and the fruit you bear. I want to encourage you to click on that yellow cover. We're going to ask for your email. Now, we won't send you spam because spam is not kosher, but we will send you the first chapter of this book. I want to encourage you to get 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. You can get it at Books A Million, wherever great Christian books are sold. Take this journey with me to the Tree of Life in the Garden of Eden and to the Tree of Life we see again at the River of Life. Get your copy today. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Jami Amerine, author of Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, How Less Than Perfect Parents Can Raise Kind of Great Kids. Jami, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Jami, you have 2 sets of 3. 3 youngers, 3 olders. All right? Not 2 separate families, but certainly 2 sets of experiences. You raise the olders in a particular model. You're raising the youngers in a different model based on the experience that you had in raising the olders. So you have kind of a second shot, second chance. You and Justin have a new way of doing things that have given you an opportunity to take a look at some of the end results of the adult children and the directions they're going, and seeing what you could have done differently, and making those adjustments and fine-tuning as you go along. And there's lots of books about raising the youngers, but dealing with the, let's call them adult children. I think anybody who's 18, 19, or 20 moves into that adult child range. What are some of the challenges that you've had and some of the pieces of counsel that you can offer to those of us who, like myself, have a 29-year-old daughter that's not exactly where I want her to be, doing exactly what I want her to do, but I have to take the hands off and be the encourager and the uplifter and base my conversations on let no unwholesome talk come from your mouth, but only that which is for the encouragement and the uplifting of another, and only offer advice when advice is sought after. How have you adjusted to this?
Well, I am close to all of my adult children. There used to be, and I believe in the Western culture, especially in the Christian culture, we think that there's just this exact formula that you follow. And when you follow that, you're going to get this. And that's how it works. And so with our first batch, we homeschooled, we went to church every Sunday, we went to church every Wednesday night, we followed all the rules. And if they do not stumble, they have no need to look up and find Jesus for themselves. And I really do think that we believed, I know I did, I believed that there was an exact formula I could follow that would produce believing adult children that did exactly what I thought they were called to do. And as that dismantled, which almost 90, I know very few people that it went exactly the way they thought it was going to go. But it is hard to watch our kids stumble, and it is hard to watch them make bad decisions, and especially if those decisions the hardest thing is to know that it can impact the rest of their lives. However, what I want for my children is for them to have a relationship with God that is their own. They mimicked mine as children, and people sometimes take offense to me saying that. I have children that are naturally very spiritually in tune, and that didn't mean that some of it was any easier. But I even, like with our youngest that's 4, that's his solution. I had a bad dream. I need you to talk to Jesus. I got in trouble at school. I need you to talk to Jesus. He has something about him that is in tune with that. And in my older children, I had that too. And they have it to fall back on. But you can't make that happen. You cannot make someone love someone. And I even compare it to, arranged marriages. You can't make someone love someone. And so for them to have a true relationship with God as adults, it really is letting go. It really is stepping back and like you said, offering when it's asked. And they know this is so important to me. They know my answer. They know what I will say. They know what I believe. They know what I stand firm in. And for that aspect of their walk, I think that's important. That's a steady ground. They know that's there, and it's indicative of who I know God is. So it's there. But you can't make it happen for your children. So as much as we talk about him and live out a life as believers, eventually, if we really want our children to have that, it has to be their own. And part of that is letting them make these decisions that are not decisions we would make. And I think with my younger ones now, that I even see that conversationally, even though they're really young, but even instead of going, no, you won't do that, and yes, you will do this, of course, not dangerous situations, but even, like I said in the first segment, our youngest that struggles with getting in trouble in school is really talking about how he makes those decisions and how it impacts him, not me, not how it makes me look. It's embarrassing when you get an email 4 or 5 times a week for the same behavior. But until they're kind of culpable for how they're acting instead of how it makes us look, they aren't growing in a lot of areas of their lives, in their decision making, in how they react with others, and how they project and how they receive God.
Your son Luke.
Yes.
Talk to me about raising him, expectations, and how his decisions came about. Kind of give us a little profile of him, what it was like to raise him, and where he is today.
Okay. So Luke was, I miscarried Luke's twin in the beginning of my second trimester, which is kind of unusual, but, and then I was on bed rest. And then when he was born, he actually had a broken collarbone from his delivery. And he dealt with some sensory disorders that made it very hard to deal with him. But he also, he was very naturally spiritual. Ooh. Did I lose you? I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, good. So he was one of my children that it was naturally spiritual. Just kind of had he was very curious about all things God. But he had just struggled with everything. He struggled with his emotions. He struggled with depression. And then he became a teenager. And he struggled even harder. He was, I think, somebody that had a natural draw to quick fixes, which was very scary for us because we worried about drug use and where that would lead. And then about the time that right after he turned 15, he did get in trouble with the law, and we could not, everything we tried to fix and make right just wouldn't work. So we borrowed money and we sent him to military school. And it was the saddest season of my life. I loved having him at home. I loved our family, and it was awful. And then when we brought him home from military school, he did not want to stay. And he actually went and saw a lawyer about being emancipated. He's just Luke. So we let him go to college early. He was just barely 17, and he still struggled quite a bit. And then finally, right about the time that it was before he turned, it was just less than a year before he was 18, we had to completely say, you can come home and live here and do things our way, or you can go. And he went. And I stayed in touch with him. I prayed for him. He knew, like I said, knew what my answers would be. He knew what my strong standing was, but it was not what he wanted. And it was very, very painful. And then he turned 18 and he was going to move to Austin, and we were moving here, and he came home one day and said, "Can I come home?" And we said yes, and he's been here ever since. He's a delight. He's mature. He's kind. He is still spiritually inquisitive. He is a yoga instructor, which I have been harshly criticized for allowing that to happen. But my response is, he's an adult. I can't make him pick a belief system. He knows what I believe. He knows what we raised him in. And I trust God to be that in his life and help that direction more than I trust myself to make it happen. Because obviously I didn't make it happen doing all the things that I did with Maggie and John. So he is wise. He is the most kind and compassionate person I've ever met. He always has been. And he is on a journey of discovery, and I trust God with him. It's not every day that it's always easy. You want them to be in the safe arms of a loving Jesus. I believe he is. I believe all my kids are. But I can't make them accept that until they accept it for themselves.
So, living under your roof as an adult child, how does that impact? You live under my roof, you live by my rules. How because that's kind of the old model. I can see where someone criticized for the yoga as it being opening the door to things that are non-biblical. And he describes himself as an agnostic, believing in a God, but not having the same definition of God that you do. His behaviors, his independence, is he a contributor? Do you have him contribute to the household? Do you have him, or is he doing his own thing, but he's got the covering and support of mom and dad? Is he acting under entitlement, or is he, what is the arrangement?
He's a completely different person than he was. I don't have to ask him to contribute. And this is a hard space, because I know that a lot of people have struggled with these things, and we struggled with him when he was under our roof, and we were trying to make those things happen. As we welcomed him back, and as we've fallen into the message of grace and what it means to love unconditionally, I don't have to ask him. He was home last night by 10 o'clock from work, and texted me and said, "I set my alarm so that you don't have to take the boys with you and take Sophie to school." And he was up making coffee, and I would testify to this with Luke. Luke has always wanted to be treated as an adult. And when there was the grace to go, that's your decision and that's your consequence, and we cannot bail you out of your consequences, that won't happen. There was a shift from trying to make this stop happening, stop this behavior at all costs, to we can't stop that behavior, but we also can't be responsible for the consequences. And in that, we have a very respectful relationship with each other. And we had a conversation recently and it did have to do with yoga. That's stuff that I don't agree with. And I listened to him. I did not criticize. I listened to him. He listened to me. And he said, "Well, I can see your point." And I said, "And I can't see yours." I can't deny this Christ. I know him too well. But I also trust this Christ who knows Luke and who Luke was introduced to complete that good work. And I think that when you're able to let go of the idea that you have to make that relationship happen, relationship is much easier and it's much more delightful. I think one of the biggest things that's the hardest thing for us to let go of is trying to alter consequences, trying to fix the end result of bad choices. We cannot do that and expect them to ever look up or to ever expect them to mature. If we're constantly fixing the consequences, the natural consequences of rotten decisions, they don't grow. And there is entitlement. There is this thing where you go, wait a minute, you're not going to fix that for me? Well, if I do, you won't ever learn from them, and you won't ever look up and see this Jesus. It's very hard, and it is very painful. And I think that that's one thing that's missed, is that we hurt as parents in that, but we are parented by a perfect Father. So in that hurt, we have a place to go and we have a place to turn. But it's relinquishing that. But I would definitely say that one of the biggest turning points for us was just going, we will not alter your consequences. We will not be involved in those. So you can ask us for advice, but if you're making decisions, your consequences are your consequences.
So in this analysis, you've semi-released him, but he's still under the same roof.
Yes, I mean, he has his own bills, he has his work, he has responsibilities, and we have things that we ask of him. We want to know where he is, things like that, which was back in the day a huge problem, is not knowing where he was, which is very hard. It's very, very hard. But in this scenario, where we are honest and we talk, and we've built what I consider an adult relationship, and he's welcome here. My husband jokes, it's almost like he is recouping what he lost in that time. He loves his younger siblings very, very much, and he loves to be around them. And we're friends. He's my friend. And, I think that's the other thing that we miss with our children as adults. We have friends, that we're not related to, that we might disagree with, or that we want something different for them, but we don't try and control it. And when you have an adult child, recognizing them as an adult and recognizing that you can enjoy their company and still disagree with them, I think it's hard, but that's not mine anymore. I cut the crust off his toast. I bathed him. I loved him, and I did all the things, and his path has been different. And maybe there were parts of it that were my folly or my mistake. But as an adult, a young adult, he's very young. He actually only just turned 19. We always say it feels like he's 35, but he is such a delight. And I know him, and I know my God, and I take comfort in both of those things.
You have another son that's in the military, chose that path after, what kind of led him down that path? Was it?
He was destined. He always, from a very young age, was and it used to horrify me. It's not easy to have a child in the military. And, but I remember when he told me that he was going to do it, and I readily admit, just was hysterical. Pick anything else. We'll support anything else. Please don't do this. It was terrifying. And he said, "This is who you raised me to be." And I remember thinking, what in the world would I have said that raised you to be that? But it is actually interesting that they even take this liberty, that we instilled something in them, that I think he was born with a heart to serve, and he's patriotic, and he's brave. And I can't take credit for any of that. So, and I do say this quite a bit in the book, where do they stop and where do we end, and where do they, they're wholly a part of us and they're wholly apart from us. And their identities, the things they're good at and the things they're bad at, don't define me any more than I define God. Our parent relationship has been so defined by doing it right or doing it wrong. And it's sad in a way, because I think it robs us of that. But that was my aha moment. My bad behavior and my good behavior do not change the good character of God. And I'm still Jami, no matter what John does, no matter what Maggie does, no matter what Sophie or Luke or Sam or Charlie do. I'm still this person. It affects my heart. It affects my feelings. It tests my beliefs. It challenges me. But I'm still Jami. And I'm mom, but I was daughter long before I was mom, and I'll be daughter long after I was mom.
So you have this transition period where you have to learn to let your kids go.
Yes.
And a lot of parents struggle with learning to let their parents go. What advice do you have for them, an encouragement for them in letting them go?
I think that the thing that you have to kind of come to this place. We have the verbiage, I believe in God. I believe he exists. I believe we're living out a Christian walk. But do you believe him? Do you believe what he says about you? Do you believe what he says about your children? Do you believe in the Holy Spirit and the power that instills in every aspect of your life? Because I've had a belief that God existed, but I didn't believe any of the things that he said about me. And so when I got to the lowest place in my parenting, it was that spot of believing him, believing in the truth of who he is, the goodness that he offered us, and why he died for us. And when that focus shifts from what you can make your children do or stop them from doing or letting them go or keeping them or whatever, and your focus goes back entirely into believing what God says about you and that child, and believing that all things work for his good, even when it's the worst, which I almost don't like to use that scripture when I know, especially when people are really, really hurting, it's the last thing you want to hear. But believing him is the catalyst to doing brave things. It is the catalyst to letting them go, to letting them fail, to letting them become their own person and worship this God that you've instilled in them.
Do you find that we err on the side of entitlement and enablement, and then we know that we have this crossroads, we have to make the decision of we're really supposed to be raising them to be independent, to be self-sufficient, and for them to leave, but we do everything we possibly can to make them dependent, dependent on us for sufficiency, and almost incapable of making decisions without us by their side. It's kind of antithetical to what we're called to do as parents, which is stewardship. And we're not just raising children, we're raising the next generation of mothers and fathers and husbands and wives. Have we lost sight of that? And is that part of the struggle we face with today?
I think we've lost sight of it just because we live in such affluence. It is, it's easy to have all of their needs met, at the dollar store. And so even if there's struggles of some kind, it seems there's always a solution of some kind that we can offer them. And then they hit 18 or 19 and it's time for them to go, and they really don't have any grasp on what that looks like to go. And I would say that about John leaving, knowing he was going to be hungry, challenged, pushed to his limits, lonely, scared. All of those things were unbearable for me, but it was completely out of my control. And once it was completely out of my control, the reality was he became a better person for those things. And I think most people can say that about themselves. Aren't we made better in those deep, dark challenges? But we have to allow our children to face those. And of course not, to their detriment, like bullying or drugs or anything, but facing those hard spots, that's how we build muscle. That's how we grow. And yes, definitely. I think that one of the biggest, hurdles for our society is not letting them face those low spots or the consequences of their decisions, and then expecting them to all of a sudden behave as capable adults when they've never had any challenges of any kind.
Well, you make a clear case for taking a realistic approach at who we are as parents, trying to do the best we can. But as far as a rule book and a guidebook is concerned, you're going to make mistakes along the way. And as a child of God, He does not make you perfect. There is only one perfect, and we're not Him. Yeah. And that when we face the reality of both the youngers and the olders, that there's things that we can do to lay a firm foundation, and there are ways that we can deal with our adult children in a way that's going to impact how we modify how we raise our younger children. So what you've done in your book, Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, How Less Than Perfect Parents Can Raise Kind of Great Kids, is give us kind of an anecdotal insight into the journey you've taken with 6 of your kids and what the result has been, and your kind of summation and biblical application to understanding what it is. You know, we tend to look for answers, but we don't analyze the situation. We just have a problem, we want a solution. You spend a lot more time in the analysis of here's what's been going on. Here's some of the funny stories, the Lucille Ball stories, the powdered donut on your nose and being pulled over by the police, just all those kind of fun aspects of the book. So it's a fun read, but it's also a very practical read, and I appreciate you addressing the adult-child aspect of this because there's so little written about it. So Jami Amerine, author of Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors, How Less Than Perfect Parents Can Raise Kind of Great Kids. It has been just a pleasure to have you back on the show. We look forward to seeing you again. Wish you and your family a very happy and healthy holiday.
Well, thank you so much. Just Jesus be all over you and take care of yourself.
Thank you. God bless. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.